So tonight, Hollywood Orientalism, back to the Fortress of Ultimate Darkness. This is a very Rick flick that we're going to discuss tonight and watch this group. Almost, you love this film.
Love it.
Big Trouble in Little China. John Carpenter. I want to talk about the White-Saviour element. I want to start with that.
Okay.
How do you feel about that? Let's go into that. Jump in, Rick.
There ain't no White-Saviour element in this film. I'd been wanting to talk about this movie for a long time, but I also know that the parameters in which we work and your attitudes, my attitudes, they're gonna, it would be hypocritical to not address certain elements of this film in relation to how Hollywood treats this kind of story. This, you mentioned Orientalism. Yeah, it's there. There's no doubt about that. And I hadn't seen the movie in about 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 years, maybe. I think I had shown it to my nephew when he was a little bit younger. And I was a little bit wary because I knew that no matter what, I was going to defend the film. I was very happy to realize that the film didn't need as much defending as I originally thought it would. Because, you look at something like this, you look at a Chinese story told through a Hollywood lens and a white filmmaker with a white John Wayne-like star, and on paper this looks like it's going to be nothing but fucking problems. But watching it again last night, for probably the 4 or 5 dozenth time that I've seen this movie since it was released in '86, I was really happy to see that there is a healthy and very open-minded respect for the material that is here. And I never got the sense that it was a White-Saviour film for 2 reasons, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. And I never got the sense that John Carpenter as a filmmaker was being opportunistic or being it would be impossible to not say that this is not cultural appropriation, but it's a film that's done in such a manner that there is total love for the genre and the type of movie that it is, and a respect for the culture that it is depicting. So no, I don't. Whatever the arguments that people have about it, and I understand that at the time there were Asian American communities that were going after John Landis for making this, or going after John Carpenter for making this film. And a lot of that was due to the history of Asian depictions of Asian characters on screen, including Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's. What's his name? The guy that would play Warner Tolan, I think his name was, who would play Charlie Chan, Boris Karloff as various Fu Manchu, I think it was. Peter Lorre as Mr. Wu. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and bullshit and say that Hollywood doesn't have a problem with sensitivity and just normal just respect. But it's not in this movie. Now, as far as a White-Saviour, what I think is interesting in this film is that, in a way, the Jack Burton character that Kurt Russell plays he's not even set up as a White-Saviour. We as an audience are so used to that trope that we go into expecting that Jack Burton is going to be a White-Saviour, and he's not. What he is a fool. What he is American John Wayne braggadocio, someone in over his head, someone who thinks he's tougher, smarter, and better prepared for what he's getting into. And he's just woefully, Carpenter had the idea, let's make the sidekick the hero and the hero the sidekick. Jack Burton represents basically the audience who would go into this kind of a world and be woefully unprepared for what it is. Now we're going to get into all kinds of elements of racism, stereotypes, and that manner of filmmaking. I can't say that there are no stereotypes in this film, but if you watch Hong Kong cinema, you will see that the depictions in this film are pulled straight out of those films, whether it's Encounters of the Spooky Kind with Sammo Hung, or more blatantly Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain, a Troy Hark film from 1983. But this is a film that is made with love and reverence and respect for both the genre and the actors and the stories and the history and the mythology. It's very important, the mythology of the story that's being told and the culture that it's being appropriated from. I don't have a problem with this movie, but I'm interested in hearing your angle, because also I know that I grew up with this movie, so there's a certain level of acceptance that I have, and maybe I'm apologizing for something. Although I don't think I'm apologizing in any way. Maybe I'm overlooking, is the better word, overlooking some blatant aspects of the film. But for somebody like you who is not necessarily a fan of this film in the way I am, I would hope that you could appreciate it for what it is, both the comedy, the action, the transplanting of a mainland Chinese story into modern day San Francisco, or at least modern day for 86. All of that works towards either an appreciation or a contempt for the film. I appreciate it. I'm curious what your angle is.
For this episode, I think my angle is I'm really more interested in listening to your how do you navigate those waters of, on the one hand, on the one hand, being very critical of those tropes, and very critical of how that's done and how it's been done and continues to be done. Also thrown in there, like navigating the idea that you have a history of personal, like this film is personal to you, and to see those nuances instead of just, like it's easy to critique films that paint with a wide brush, right?
Yeah.
And it's also easy in critiquing those films to paint with a wide brush. So to me, it's fascinating. I'm more interested, particularly for something like this, especially because it's like kind of like in your house or in your box or in your whatever. More than just saying, okay, this is a list of reasons why this is. And when I say what I mean, maybe it's not a white so-called savior, but it's more of a question of how embedded and centered in this ethnic world is the Jack Burton character. Is he centered, and don't answer this just yet, but is he centered in the world, or is he, as you described, is he a version of a stand-in of the audience that's going in there with our prejudices and our prejudices as Hollywood consumers, but also prejudices as Americans, and realizing like, yeah, we're out in over our heads. We don't know what the fuck's going on. So I'm really fascinated and interested in hearing like you, rather than me just going like, again, here's a list of the reasons why it's a white savior story or not a white savior story or whatever, and then have you either confirm all of these bullet points or else like refute them or knock them down or whatever. I'm interested in the messy treading of these waters that you do. And I'm not asking you to defend the film. I'm not asking you to. I just kind of want to sit back in a way and just kind of volley stuff back and forth with you and just hear you go into some of these. Like I want to hear about how does it relate to Hong Kong films that are contemporary to it? You know, the Jackie Chan, like police story era shit. The Zoo Warrior stuff. What's the background?
Warriors,
like you're talking about also an era where and let me go through so there's kind of like at least somewhat of a flow. Let me I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions because I really want to hear your opinion on this because this is kind of your episode and I'm just here asking you questions.
Okay.
If it's not a white savior story, is it that a white character is centered in the world, or is it that, or is it in its own way like a satire of the white savior? In this era, you've got the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom shit going on. You've got like, you know what I mean? You've got that kind of.
Well, also at the same time that this film was being made, Eddie Murphy was doing The Golden Child, which is a much more stereotypical. And in my view, if you were going to lay offense, like one of these films is offensive versus the other, that is a much more offensive film than anything that you see in Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah.
And in that sense, it's like, we're going to make the white savior black.
Yeah.
Just to twist it.
Yeah.
Okay, so go into some of that beyond what you've already said, and kind of like what is this film in comparison to Golden Child, to Temple of Doom, to these other kinds of films of that genre or that kind of Orientalist kind of explorer thing?
Well, there's the idea that so the difference between this film and the Orientalism of The Golden Child is that with The Golden Child, there's no real attempt made to flesh out the world and understand the motivations of the people and the history and the mythology. And I think mythology is a really important aspect of this film, of both these films, because every culture has stories that are ingrained in their identity and their cultural history that speaks to cultural practices, cultural traditions, ideas on the creation of people, language, the world, and those aspects, how they dictate towards life. With The Golden Child, Eddie Murphy goes into that world for a quick understanding and an explanation, but doesn't really live in that world. Jack Burton, on the other hand, in this film, Jack Burton is thrown into this world thinking that he knows everything, thinking that he's a tough guy in the American Rambo. They even reference Dirty Harry in this film, where Egg Shen pulls out a .45 Magnum and is like, "Here, make you feel like Dirty Harry," and it's aware of the tough guy image that pervades Hollywood cinema. What I love about this film, though, is that Jack Burton is not the hero. Jack Burton is somebody who figures out really quickly that he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. But it's a testament to the American attitude of the American conceit, the American idea of grandness, of might, power and might stands for everything. And that he can just go in there and start kicking ass, and he's going to be able to go in there and just, dictate how this is going to go down. If you look at the Jack Burton character, it's fucking hilarious because he can't do anything right. He starts to shoot. The
ceiling?
What's that?
The ceiling?
The what?
When he shoots the ceiling?
No. We're going to get to that. When he first picks up a gun, he can't even shoot the goddamn thing because the safety is on. He doesn't even realize the fucking safety is on. He takes it off, shoots a bunch of guys, seems shocked by it. Eddie looks at him and goes, "Is that the first time you capped somebody?" He was like, "No." And he's lying. He's full of shit. But then you come to that scene where, he slowly does. His hero is the bravery that he has and is willing to go into a world that he doesn't know with a friend because the guy is his friend. That he is an admirable character. He is a hero in that sense, but he's a hero that is more in the way than really pushing the narrative forward. He's a problem. He's the one that has to have everything explained to him, but he's important for an American audience to watch this because we're confused as well. And I think Carpenter knew that. And I mean, the fact of the matter is that whether or not this film played in Hong Kong or mainland China or anywhere else in Asia, this was a film that was made for an American audience. And for better or worse, that means that there has to be an American, or at least the studio system is going to push the idea that there needs to be an American stand-in for the audience to understand what the world is. And I got to admit that it does help to a degree because I've seen Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain, and it's a difficult film to follow because there's so much mythology and history and gods this and characters that it's hard to follow what is actually happening. This is a lot more simplistic, but I think the focus and the enjoyment, first of all, the absurdity of the Jack Burton character makes for some really good laughs. I think this is a really good performance on Kurt Russell's part, and I think it's a brave performance because what you're seeing is a guy who accepts, an actor of his stature, really, who has had success and wants to position himself as an American hero, an action hero, and he looks like the fool the entire time. This is not Rambo. This is not, this is not Schwarzenegger in the jungle, figuring it out as it goes along, or piecing it together, or realizing we're the ones being hunted. If it bleeds, we can kill it. That's not what this is. This is a guy that's like, he hears Egg Shen say, that's the black blood of the earth. You mean oil? No, I mean black blood of the earth. That's a line that just kills me every time because it's like, you want it to make sense, and you want this world to make sense in the parameters of what science, nature, and culture dictate. When it's completely different, you're completely out of your element. That's a little moment that I don't know if a lot of people got, but it resonated with me. I like the fact that Russell is not afraid to play the fool and to lean fully into a John Wayne moron character. John Wayne, the emblematic example of American manhood, American cinematic manhood at this time. Not so much now because people don't have a real understanding of cinematic history, but there was a time when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Although John Wayne had already been long dead, John Wayne was the template for what American masculinity was. And that's what Russell is doing, but he's showing that it's completely it's a completely ignorant and foolish and just he's so out of his depth that anytime he does achieve anything in this film, it's accidental. Jack Burton is a fool. And I appreciate that. I love that. I love the fact that his best friend, Wang Chi, the Denis Dun character, this little guy, boyish almost, is the hero. That he's the one with the character arc. He does have the character arc. He's the star of this film. The fact that Kurt Russell outshines is because Kurt Russell is both funny, charismatic, and able to make this foolhardy, bullish character endearing. So you love him. You look at him and you're like, this guy's a fucking moron. But at the same time, his heart's in the right place, and he makes you laugh with his ridiculousness. You know, we'll be back. If we're not back by sun, what does it say? If we're not back by sunrise, call the president. It's just like, who says something moronic like that? And it's so obviously moronic. For me, it's a matter of you can't help but laugh. So yeah, I watched this film and I embrace that. So the White-Saviour thing doesn't play a part of it for me. You got John Carpenter, who I don't know if John Carpenter was a student of Hong Kong cinema, but he had seen something that he loved, that he fell in love with, namely Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain, the Troy Hark film. And maybe Encounters of the Spooky Kind. See, the sword and sorcery world of Hong Kong cinema is not a genre that I'm as familiar with. I'm more of the historical, Once Upon a Time in China, Drunken Master, some of the early Shaw Brothers films that were, 36 Chamber of Shaolin, that kind of stuff, where it was like...
Yeah, like the Kung Fu shit.
Exactly, the Kung Fu movies, where it was like, the training, the master, the avenge the master. Yeah. So I don't know the sword and sorcery thing, but I do love this. And to speak to that, let's go into something really cool, really what I find really interesting. I don't know where Denis Dun is from. He seems American to me. James Hong, the great James Hong, who is something like 97, 98 now. What's that?
Iconic in this fucking film.
Very iconic in this film. Namely, James Hong and Victor Wong as Egg. Okay, James Hong is David Lopan, and Victor Wong is Egg Shen. I think they're both American born. I think they're both born here, or at least came here when they were very young. So, well, no.
He's one of the co-founders of East West.
Yes.
So East West Players is a very influential LA Asian American theater company that up until relatively recently, like in the grand scheme, it sounds like, I would say within the last probably 30 years at least, like everybody who is Asian American that you see on fucking TV has probably come through there on some level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, like, we work with people who have come through there, who are currently still, you know, like, active. It's out of Little Tokyo at the right there by close to Parker Center. Very historic, very influential. Mako. He got his. What did he get? He got the Academy Award for Sand Pebbles, right?
He was nominated, at least. I'm not sure if he won it.
Yeah, he might have been nominated. With Steve McQueen. It's hard to really, if you've never heard of East West Players, it's hard to kind of get that perspective on it. In that, if you were in LA and you wanted to work in theater and you wanted some form of like representation, and you want some form of a voice, and you wanted some form of issues that were related to Asian American identity, and those stories. East West Players was one of those. That was the harbor that you had to fucking pass through. And LA is not a theater town. LA is Hollywood. And East West Players is like one of those live theater meccas. So James Hong is not only iconic for this movie, but his legacy is embedded in theater, in American theater in general, but especially in like outside of Broadway, New York. Like, it's like heavy influence on American theater.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's just that is super important. So I just wanted to chime in.
It's important, and I'm glad that, you know, and we were fortunate enough to work peripherally to East West for a number of years. You more so than I. But it was like it's really interesting to be, or at least within the parameters of an iconic place like that. And I counted as some of the best times of, you know, the best years of my life in Los Angeles. I wish I had come to it earlier than I did, but it's, you know, to get back to it, East West, James Hong. See, the point that I was getting ready to make, and I'm glad we diverged, but the point that I was getting ready to make, James Hong and Victor Wong. James Hong, born in Minneapolis, and Victor Wong, born in San Francisco. I think as the children of immigrants, those of us who are not, and now we're getting into issues of race, and which we're not afraid of, and but my opinion has always been that, especially for Latin and Asian people in this country, what makes us different from, one of the things that makes us different from white people and black people, is that it is imagined that we are all from somewhere else. That we are all immigrants. That if your skin is brown, or if your eyes are almond shaped, as they say, you are from somewhere else. You are not an American.
Yeah,
that's the view.
Yeah, you're a foreigner. You're an outsider.
Yeah, we're foreigners.
You're an alien. Whatever. Yeah.
So the troubling aspect of that is, where do we fit in this country that we are Americans? We are born here. We were raised here. We understand the traditions. But we also hold on to aspects of our own culture that we are raised with through our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents. If you're lucky, and Latin and Asian communities tend to be multi-generational families living within within a home, or at least within a
Especially in
neighborhood.
this economy,
Well,
you know.
that's a whole other aspect of it. So I looked at a Victor Wong and a James Hong, and I see two actors who probably, and you got to see, they had to have been in their 50s when they made this film. They look like they're in their 50s or their 60s in this film. But you're looking at two actors who worked in an industry that did not appreciate them, that did not value them in any way, and oftentimes made them either the butt of joke or exoticized them so that they were not Americans. They were neither romantic leads, sex symbols. They were not action heroes. They were never the star. And Hong and Wong both look to me, playing these two characters, Egg Shen and Lo Pan, like they're having the greatest time of their lives, because they know they've never had this opportunity, and they probably will not get another opportunity like this again. And it's sad to say that neither Victor Wong or James Hong ever had roles like this again in films. They worked. James Hong is still working up until this day. He was just in Everybody Everywhere, the Michelle Yeoh movie that won best
Once, yeah.
everything all at once, that just won the Academy Award about 5 years ago, whatever it was. I was still in LA, so 7 years ago. No, I was here actually. Anyway, but can you imagine? Here's a chance for them to play Chinese heroes in a world that they know better than anybody else. And that, when I say a world that they know better than anybody else, what I'm talking about is a world created from the mythology of the stories that they were raised with. The emperors of China, the shaman, the sorcerers, the soldiers and fighters who would go on these hero journeys that are just as impressive and just as important as anything that you would read in Greek mythology or European history or whatever America. I mean, it's a history and a mythology that comes from a place that we as Americans have no fucking clue of. But these guys were either raised with these stories or in films that they watched as children, teenagers, and young adults. I guarantee that they watched Wong Fei Hung, which is in cinematic terms, Wong Fei Hung, the character that Jet Li would base Once Upon a Time in China on, and Jackie Chan would do Drunken Master and Drunken Master Part 2. This was a character that is as popular in Chinese cinema as Sherlock Holmes is in European English cinema and literature, where there have been literally hundreds of films made about this character, with this character as the lead. Even at one point, there was a TV show. So as an actor and an entertainer, I watched this thinking to myself, my God, I can't imagine how much fun James Hong and Victor Wong must have been experiencing playing these parts. And as goofy as it is, especially in that scene where they're battling each other in the temple during the wedding ceremony, and they're hitting each other with these rays. that's fucking cool. I love that.
Like it becomes like Street Fighter 2 or like fucking combat. You know what I mean? Like,
and it's like James Hong is actually moving his fingers like a control.
Yes.
Like he's working a Nintendo controller, and what does he say? Yeah. You could never beat me. You could never beat me, Egg Shen. Yeah. I love that. And it's just, for me, there's a certain empathy in understanding what actors who have put up for every all ding 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 fucking movie that they had to make, that shitty fucking stereotype that they had to do in order to get work, they finally get something that, yeah, some people can call it a stereotype, but it's a stereotype based in the history of Chinese and Hong Kong cinema. So fuck it, let's go all out. Let's embrace this opportunity to play these characters. At least that's what I hope, because I don't see exoticism in this film at the expense of character. These are, David Lopan is a real person to me, and his struggle in his fight to beat this curse and gain his human form again is very real. And Egg Shen, as a sorcerer who has spent his whole life waiting for this moment to finally fulfill his destiny, which is to kill Lopan. I mean, how is that different from countless other action stories that we've seen in the past? I'm not going to fault this film because it was directed by a white man, or that it has Kurt Russell as the ostensible hero of the story. If anything, I give John Carpenter mad respect for recognizing that he didn't have to do it within the parameters of the expected Hollywood the traditional Hollywood expectations on what a white hero should be. Now, if it had started off with there was a white man who drove an iron rhinoceros or an iron elephant through the streets of San Francisco, who was prophesied to save Chinatown, which you can imagine them doing. That's Dune.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and even a few years later, it would be you would have David Carradine as in Kung Fu: The Legend Continues on TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
but even like the Golden Child, Eddie Murphy is the chosen one. The fact that they don't even use that language, that it's like he's just friends with a Chinese guy, and
who owes him money.
Yeah, who owes him money because he's a degenerate gambler. I love it. I love that. They're up all night playing Heaven and Earth, Pai Gow, which I don't know which one that they're playing, but they're gambling, drinking, and there's that relationship between the two of them. But it's funny too, because it's like, how does Kurt Russell say it? How does Jack Burton say it? I thought what we were, racial differences notwithstanding, was just a couple of old friends. It's like, what? There's a certain poetry in the ridiculousness of his reading, And
and it's being called out.
Yeah.
Like there's a mockery to this is the hell of blah blah blah.
Uh-huh.
Like, how many fucking hells do you have?
Yeah, Chinese got a lot of hells.
Yeah,
I love that.
And it becomes this. I remember going to see. It was the biopic of Bruce Lee.
The Jason Scott Lee movie, Dragon.
Yeah, Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this idea of all the Guaylo, like the white belts, they don't know shit. Like they don't know fucking shit. And it's interesting because the dynamics of this John Wayne character, that goes, back to the Wild West.
Yeah.
When the Chinese built this fucking country, among other people.
Mm-hmm.
I have to clarify, not that there wasn't shit here before, because we already know this is like, it wasn't empty.
No,
or
building an
indigenous people
industrial society is I think
in
what
an
you.
industrial
Yeah.
society
Yeah.
based on the steam engine. Yes.
Yeah.
The modern era of exploitation and colonialism. So, hey, keep it real, right?
No,
So
I know.
fucking,
I agree. I completely agree.
and fucking, it becomes that David Milch show. What's the name of that show? That
Deadwood.
Deadwood.
Yeah.
It's that relationships. It's the cowboy and it's the frontier shit. And then you have, you know, the idea of Golden Mountain and all that stuff of different waves of Chinese immigration, and you have one of those centers of Chinese American culture in a populace is something like a San Francisco.
Yeah.
So to have Kurt Russell also be John Wayne goes beyond just something random. There's a history that it's built on. They're not commenting on it, but it's there.
Yeah. You don't have to comment on it when it's so blatant and so apparent, and you know it's so in your face. You would have to be a fool to not at least recognize. Yeah,
just not know that. And having Chinese American actors in San Francisco doing, you know, it's also speaking to them as Americans.
Well, I'm glad you bring this up, because I think it's very important that Denis Dun is an American actor that was chosen, because originally, and you got to remember, this is 1986. Carpenter originally wanted Jackie Chan for this film, which I think, as much as I love Jackie Chan, he would have been completely wrong for this film. This film needed to be a Chinese American actor who, because there's a great difference between those of us who are American born and those that were born in the motherland. It's a different experience. It's a different attitude, and it's a different cultural awareness. So to put Jackie Chan in the film would have made it a much different. Jackie Chan would have been a foreigner in a copy of what China was, and it just would not have worked as well. Dennis Dun is an American kid.
Plus, Jackie Chan's, a lot of his characters encompass a mixture of both the Denis Dun character and the Kurt Russell character, because there's a silent film era, comedic action aspect that's also somewhat foolish that Jackie Chan knows how to work, and then at the same time just the straight noble hero guy, and those two characters were split in those two aspects, where you have the fool, the so-called brave fool he's full of himself and he's a buffoon, and then the kind of more understated. He's throughout the film, the Denis Dun character is, people are like, well, why didn't you say this? And he's like, well, I didn't want to scare you, or he's constantly keeping stuff.
Yeah.
And by the end of the film, you're like, this guy's flipping. He's fucking all crazy. He's
what does he tell him? What does he tell him? It was like, I'm Chinese and I don't even believe it sometimes. I'm Chinese and I have a hard time believing it.
And that's another aspect of the American experience, where it's kind of like, part of that is also a sense of neither here nor there. Like, you're not American enough, but you're not Chinese enough, or whatever it may be. At the end, the Egg character, I think Kurt Russell's, he asked him if he's going to go vacation. He's like, I need a vacation. He's like, are you going to go to China? He was like, China's in Hark.
Yeah. Wherever I go, she's with me.
Yeah. And it kind of sounds a little cheesy, but at the same time,
on paper, it looks cheesy, but this is a guy that he delivers the line. For me, it works completely, you know?
that's also to me a very there's something about it that I read as very also American, but as not fucking born in Idaho or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Like something about the immigrant experience or the otherness where it's you maintain a level of your culture, and you carry that with you. And also, like, if ever you were to try to forget, motherfuckers will remind you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Now,
from both sides too, sadly.
From both fucking sides, absolutely. Now, in terms of the martial arts, what was there? Were they very much aware of on the production side of like what Jackie Chan was doing with Police Story, with Wheels on Wheels, or what it's called?
Yeah, he was. Carpenter was aware of those films. He had seen those films, and I think for an audience, I'll just say this much to begin with on that end. For an audience who was unfamiliar with martial arts or Hong Kong martial arts film, this film is not very good with its martial arts. There's a lot of stop, and it looks a little bit too choreographed, and but you got to understand the difference between the way they shoot in Hong Kong and the way they shoot over here. Over here, it's about getting the shot and boom, moving on. Whereas with Hong Kong cinema, the end of Drunken Master 2, the director Lau Kar Leung, who was a legend, a Shaw Brothers director legend, had quit because of conflicts with Jackie Chan and how to shoot the film. Jackie Chan would go on and shoot the last fight in that film, which is, it's a fight that lasts about anywhere between 17 and 20 minutes. Fuck. I think they shot that thing for...
That's a whole act.
That's a whole act, yeah. It's got to be about 17 minutes, I think. And in a fight like that, when you do something like that, that fight alone is like a little story that has 3 parts to it. So if you watch Drunken Master 2, you'll see a whole story within that. You could start the film from when Chan goes into the foundry to fight the British, the colonialists and the Japanese and Chinese overseers. That shit is like 17 minutes long. It took them I've read it took them 5 months to shoot that.
God damn.
Now that's longer than the entire shooting schedule for this film. You can't, so the problem is you can't shoot, and that's why Jackie Chan's American films are woefully inadequate in comparison to what you see in Hong Kong. The Rush Hour films are fucking embarrassing. The what do you call it? The Shanghai Noon films, they're enjoyable because I like the relationship between him and Owen Wilson, and I like seeing Chan in the Old West. But the fight scenes are nothing compared to what you get over there, and the style and the abuse that the stuntmen can and are willing to take. So you can't do that shit over here. The fights are fun, they're good times, but they don't have they have a choreographed dance look rather than a natural dance look that you would see in Hong Kong. So I commend the filmmakers for doing the best that they could, but there is a limitation. Watch this film and then watch a Jackie Chan film from watch Project A or Armor of God or Police Story. The fight scenes in this don't even compare. They just don't compare. But that being said, I also commend the fact that they didn't put Kurt Russell through a 3-week kung fu tutorial to have him, kung fu fight his way through this shit, because it would have been embarrassing. And to Kurt Russell's credit, to play the hero that gets knocked out for the first half of the final fight and then gets stuck on a giant killer and spend the rest of the fight on that. I mean, how can you not respect an actor that doesn't take himself seriously enough? That doesn't take himself so seriously that he would do that. You think Stallone would do that? You think Bruce Willis would do that? Fuck no. There's no way.
Right.
They might take a beating until they flip it around, but everything that Jack Burton does in this film, every success that he has in this film is accidental. Even the fact that he kills Lo Pan at the end, he got lucky. He got lucky.
Yeah, that was like a 1 in a million fucking thing.
Exactly. But you believe it because he's fucked up so badly throughout this film that it doesn't come out of fucking left field. This guy's lucky, you know? But he also has this other kung fu guy that's got his back, that is, you know, I mean, that's what I love. It doesn't go out of the way to make him more important than he is in somebody else's story.
Now, what's the basis in terms of the Zoo Warriors? What is that? And
well, the thing is that this film was originally intended as a Western. It was written as a Western, and Jack Burton would ride into town on a horse. They would steal his horse, and then he would spend the film trying to get back his horse. But if you watch Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain, Yun Biao, who was one of the three brothers, the three brothers being Jackie Chan, the middle brother, Jackie Chan, Yun Biao, the younger brother, and Sammo Hung, the oldest brother. These three men, along with Yun Hua, Dicky Tong, I think his name was, and a handful of the other guys that would make up the Jackie Chan stunt team, the Sammo Hung stunt team, basically the faces of 1980s Hong Kong action cinema. They grew up in the Peking Opera School, I believe. So they trained with their Sifu, who was the master, who was just a very abusive, but abusive in the sense of that was the training. The training was abuse. So Sammo, Yun Biao, and Jackie Chan were in this school. Years later, when the Peking Opera was something that would just start to fall out of favor, these students who had trained, had a talent and it needed to be used for something, so they went into cinema. Now, in the 80s, I think it was 83, Golden Harvest was supplanting Shaw Brothers as the studio as the powerhouse studio in Hong Kong. Shaw Brothers had become kind of old and stale, and they made great films, but everybody gets lazy and everybody starts falling back on tropes and these regular, they know what works and they give the audience that. Leonard Ho and Raymond Chow would have this idea of starting expanding the possibilities. So they started going into sword and sorcery, and Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain is a film based on Chinese literature, mythology, and history. In the same way that Big Trouble is. Big Trouble is, the Lo Pan character at least, is based in some legends of Chinese mythology. But what captured Carpenter's eye was the wire work, the flying through the air, the electricity that would shoot out from these sorcerers and how they would fight each other. It's weird because I was watching Zoo 2 nights ago, and Troy Hark, the director, brought over American special effects people. But the special effects are very clunky and obvious. It has a certain charm to it, but in the way that the original King Kong has a certain charm to it. You watch it and you're like, wow, well, this is fun. You can see the wires. And a lot of it is really bad, pre green screen. But it's all about sword and sorcery, heaven, hell, demons, and, the battle between good and evil. And I think Carpenter saw that film and was overwhelmed by it, and at least wanted to do something that incorporated that level of wire work, sorcerers, and to his credit, he developed the David Lopan character. See, this movie wouldn't work without Lopan. James Hong gives an incredible performance in this film. I think he gives an incredible performance, and he does it as 3 different Lopans. He does the old man Lopan, which I love. Shut up, Mr. Burton. You are not brought here to get it. that fucking line kills me every time. There's little things about this that I just love the fucking movie. Shut up, Mr. Burton. The Lopan ghost, and then the Lopan human at the end. And if you watch the film, you'll see the subtle differences in the way Hong performs the character. He is a little shell of an old man with insane makeup. That makeup is insane. How really weird and ugly and ridiculous he makes himself, that they make him look in that. And I can't imagine the process of putting that together. But then you see him as the ghost Lopan, and that's where I think James Hong is just like a little kid, excited that he gets to play this character that he is probably basing on stories that he was told when he was a kid by his grandparents or his parents or his aunts and uncles, and you got to remember James Hong is like 97 years old, so that was a time period when parents really did tell their kids stories, and those stories came from history and the mythology of the motherland. And I can attest to that because I remembered stories that my grandmother used to tell me about ghosts, and you would hear about La Llorona and the Chupacabra and the Cocuy and all kinds of weird shit that old people said and believed. I think that also plays into it. Did your grandmother ever do that with you, where they would just tell these wild, crazy stories about?
She would tell me more like religious type of stories.
Well, which is the same kind of mythology.
I mean, yes, but I mean, like, it wasn't really like monsters and stuff, or like boogeyman type of thing. It was more like the devil, and or it would be like these local, like my uncles would talk about like local urban legends about the devil, and shit like that, and that was a thing.
Well, see, I'm projecting right now, but I'm basing. I think that James Hong took a lot of what I am projecting onto his childhood in the formation of this character, because I believe he grew up like that. I believe that I've never heard him talk about it, but I believe that I mean, this is a common experience of children. We listen to stories, especially from old people. Your grandparents are living in the house, or you go and stay with them for a while, and what are they going to do? They're gonna tell you these stories, and it informs. Yeah. Especially if you're an actor or a writer or a filmmaker, it's going to inform the stories that you go on later to tell, the characters that you play. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, now in terms of from the makeup, let's cross real quick to the special effects, because we can't. There are monsters. There's a giant like creature. Look, it reminds me of Slimer. The way it moves, it has all these eyeballs.
Oh, that eyeball thing. I love that thing.
Yeah, the effects are crazy.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, that's Richard Edlund, who was, I think Richard Edlund had worked, had assisted on the thing, I believe. But that was, God, there were so many people. Winston, Greg Nicotero, Edlund had done some work on that. And there were a couple other guys that I think worked with him on the thing. And at this time, Carpenter was known as a special effects horror filmmaker. So it was the chance to create, this monster that lives underground that would reappear later at the end of the film as kind of like a teaser for a
Yeah.
sequel that would never happen. And thank God it never happened, because I
It's
can't
kind of like
imagine. What's that?
a Sasquatch-looking creature.
It was a Sasquatch thing, but it would also, Carpenter has been quoted as saying he wanted something in the face that looked kind of like Nosferatu. And now that I look at it, I was like, yeah, I can see that. I can see the kind of narrowness and the fangs and the eyes. It does kind of look like Shrek from Max Shrek from the original Nosferatu. But then you have all these, you have that ball of eyes, and I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if there's anything like that in Chinese mythology. If you watch Zoo, there is a lot of there's a lot of sorcerers being tied to boulders and stones, and the crossover between heaven and hell, and monsters that come. Monsters that are like the Tusken warriors from Star Wars. So I think sometimes when you're a writer, you just look at a situation and say, yeah, a fucking eyeball, an eyeball monster that just floats around, and it's got a kind of cute little vibe to it, but it's like, it's weird. It looks like a booger.
Yeah.
It looks, I mean, I just think it's something that they kind of just make up. And with that warrior in all that armor that you never see, that Burton kills. What else is there? There's the special effects of the green glow in the sky that crashes into the building and destroys, and where the three weathers, thunder, lightning, and rain. I think those guys are cool as shit. Peter Kwan and Carter Wong, and I'm not sure what the other actor's name is, but they come onto the scene and they're fantastic as these powers, that humans have to go toe to toe with, and it's like man versus God, and that's something that just is very, whether it's Chinese mythology or Greek mythology, there just seems to be this need in cultures to put human beings against the gods that come here in some kind of human form. And yeah, I love that. That monster that comes out of the wall. What the hell was that, Egg? Go back. Don't never come back. Come back. Whatever Egg Shen kills in that, or that thing that comes out of the wall and grabs somebody. It's shit like that. And I think with more time and more money, you would have seen a lot more of that kind of thing. But then it would have become overkill. So I think this movie has a really good balance of Chinese mythology, martial arts, sword and sorcery, and just this ridiculous fight scene between Denis Dun and I think Peter Kwok is their. I remember that as a kid, just laughing my ass off that they would be leaping through the air, crossing swords like that. That was just so cool. That was just so fucking cool. Yeah. I mean, I gotta say that to a degree, maybe I make excuses for this film. Maybe I want it to be better than it is. I don't think I do, though. I think this film is exactly what I portray it as. But I'm also happy that I saw it when I was probably 10 years old, 10 or 12 years old, because it's, to see it at an older age, that's the magic time in which to see a fantasy film. I saw this when I was 12. I saw Adventures of Baron Munchausen when I was like 14 or 15. There's just something about being able to retain that innocence of childhood when you're watching something like this, because this is not, this is, you're not watching it with a nostalgic view. Now you are. Now I am. But there's a part of it is just like, wow, monsters and sorcerers and, a ridiculous hero, and the little guy is the real hero, and Egg Shen is just so cool, and David Lopez. I mean, there's just so much in this film that if I'd be interested to hear some of my Asian friends and whether or not they find, because there's also that factor. Is it insulting to them? Because I don't think think the film itself would be insulting to them. I think the countless number of white, black, Latin, and other people coming up to them, imagine the problem becomes, is this the thing that everybody believes defines our culture?
Right.
It's like me with Stand and Deliver and American Me, both films that I think are exceptional, really well made, really good films. But I hate the fact that that is the thing that everybody thinks Mexicans are, because it's certainly not me. So yeah. I would have to talk to, for something like that, I could defend this film from morning to night, but it wouldn't matter in the sense that I'm not a Chinese kid. I'm not an Asian kid who has to listen to non-Asians talk at length about this film and how much they love it, as if we're going to connect on that level.
Yeah.
So that's my take on that.
What's really at the now we're basically the end of the episode. What's personal? Like, what's so personal to you about this film? Like, what connects you? What really captures?
You know what? It's the fighting. It's the good versus evil, but it's also there is something about, like, watching it this time, I really focused on the relationship between Egg Shen and David Lopan, because this is the first time where I realized, oh, this is shit that goes back. This is a battle that's been going on for hundreds of years, which also means Egg Shen is not what he seems to be. Egg Shen seems almost immortal, like because Lopan has to be hundreds and hundreds of years old. And that means if they have history, Egg Shen is hundreds and hundreds of years old. And they've been going back and forth. And I think when I was a kid, it was goofy and fun. And it was a good time. But as I've gotten older, I respect the choices that were made. I respect the chances that both Carpenter and Kurt Russell made in both going into this world and doing so with a certain level of reverence that I would argue you cannot find in other films, that you can't find in other films by white filmmakers who go into Asian, African, definitely Native American, or Latin cultures. They always approach it from the sense of a white savior. And I don't see that at all in this film. So now it's almost like it's a film that I appreciate more because of the chances that it takes and the bravery that it has in telling a story that is not straight Hollywood stereotype. And the stereotypes that are in the film are addressed in many ways. The moment where Jack Burton says, do any of these guys, do they speak the English or something like that? And the Chinese goes, what's this guy's problem? Or something like that. Who is this guy? Oh, and then, it's a good one-off. It again shows he's a moron. He's a moron. And I love that Kurt Russell didn't try to make him a sympathetic moron. He made him a charismatic moron. You can't deny charisma. You could be a moron and charismatic. But also, if you're a moron and just an asshole, then, that speaks to something different. I don't know that I understood that when I was a kid, but I understand it now. So there is a level that I appreciate about this film in a way that Dune 1, 2, and the upcoming third film cannot even begin to approach. That Dances with Wolves misses. That Avatar is a fucking embarrassment. You guys want to learn how to make a better film? Watch Big Trouble in Little China and take a note from John Carpenter. Because as ornery and mean and angry as John Carpenter is, and I've met him on more than one occasion, he is a miserable old man. I love him for the fact that he doesn't compromise. And he should have. He should have compromised on this film, at least to the point where it might have made more money. The studio might have been able to make it a profit. The movie died. The movie died because it was going up against Eddie Murphy in The Golden Child, and it was going up against Aliens. This movie, they didn't know what to do with it. They knew they had a spectacle that people loved, but they didn't know how to market it. So, I mean, he gave them a diamond and they buried it in shit. But it was the era of home video. It was the era of Tower Records and Blockbuster and Mom and Pop and HBO. And they found it. And that's been a lot of John Carpenter's career. Rediscovering films that we should have seen in the theater. A lot of these films, The Thing, They Live, Big Trouble in Little China, they were not successful when they were released. We had to go out there and find them. And we were lucky back then because we had that chance.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That was the episode. Libsyn is the home base. You can hear our shit on most of the standard streaming platforms. If you want to send $5, support the show, you can find us at buymeacoffee.com/watchRickRamos. That's buymeacoffee.com/watchRickRamos. Till next time.